Unfortunately, the sport we love to watch doesn't always end the way we'd like it to.
Absolutely not. It was a bogus decision. The thing that I'm depressed about right now is the fact that I don't have the 3 names and a mugshot of each of those officials for the crime that they committed by robbing Manny Pacquiao tonight.
Welcome back to Boxing Legends TV. Today, we'll be taking a look at the top 7 judges' decisions that left the boxing community disgusted with the outcome.
Did I score hitting fresh air? And did I score hitting elbows and arms? What on earth was everyone looking at there? What happened to the art of boxing?
This year has seen a rise in controversial moments, from sucker punches to the most bizarre arrest in the sport's history. But the thing that angers the fans the most is when the judges are so far out on the scoring, it leaves you wondering if they were actually paid off. It's crazy to think about, I know, but some of these really push the boundaries of possibility.
That he could lose a decision because of corruption. He goes, because that's how boxing rolls, and there's way more money in Canelo winning.
When Andre Ward versus Sergey Kovalev battled it out for the second time, fans were adamant they were going to get a fair crack of the whip. The first fight was ended in a controversial decision in the eyes of many as Ward just edged out a unanimous decision with all 3 judges leaning towards Ward by 1 point. Although the video title is Judges' Decisions, this is the only feature on the list that resulted in my opinion, a controversial stoppage from the referee. Before you accuse me of having a bias towards Kovalev or anything like that, Ward has always been one of my favorite boxers of recent times. I thought he rightfully got the decision in the first fight, funnily enough by exactly 1 point. But the way this fight ended, with the supposed body shots, left me questioning what the hell just happened.
Over the top to the head, and now watch these body shots that ultimately seal the deal. And look at the effort that Ward puts into every body shot. Boom, boom.
Even the replays make it difficult to see where the punches are landing. Ward was actually boxing a great fight, and I have no doubt he would have went on to win. But this victory just doesn't quite sit well with me and a large majority of other boxing fans.
Are you saying you...
No, why do I stop the fight like?
So you're saying you could have continued?
Yeah, sure, of course. I know right now I should have continued.
You don't feel like it was a proper stoppage?
It didn't hurt. I didn't feel the hurt.
Being robbed by the judges has to be a horrible feeling for the boxer involved. But imagine being robbed twice in a row, and then imagine they were the only 2 losses on your record. Well, unfortunately, that was the case for the Ricky Hatton-trained Belarusian fighter Kirill Relik. His first loss to Ricky Burns in October last year was heavily disputed by many. Then his loss to the undefeated Rances Bartolome in May of this year took it to another level.
Much more aesthetically pleasing 3-punch combination put together by Bartolome. No feeling out process in this one as the opening minute has contained nothing but fisting fireworks.
The 12-round contest was scored widely in the Cubans' favor, despite the punch stats showing a fairly equal landing. They both scored knockdowns in the bout, but once again the fighter linked to the smaller promotional company came up short.
Wow. That's 117, 109, 116, 110, 115, 111 in favor of Rances Bartolome.
So even the 3-point swing didn't matter. So after 35 years of doing boxing, I think most people know I take a pretty tempered approach to this. That is nothing short of an outrage.
This is one of the robberies on the list I think people might slowly forget as time progresses. Manny Pacquiao's last trip to the ring took place on July 2nd earlier this year. He ventured to opponent Jeff Horn's backyard of Brisbane, Australia to defend his WBO title. The fight itself was one of my personal favorites of the year. Awesome back and forth action with both of the fighting styles gelling perfectly. Horn, being the more aggressive fighter, seemed to be roughing Pacquiao up for a large majority of the contest, but nothing appeared to be landing clean. Pacquiao, on the other hand, had bursts in the fight where he looked back to his prime self. Round 9 in particular was just about as epic as it could ever be.
You're going to see the results of it now in the late round. Right now, you're going to see the results of it.
Perhaps commentator Teddy Atlas got a little bit carried away at times, but things went to a whole other level once the final announcement was made and Horn was given the unanimous decision.
This was hometown, home country scoring, and I think it's, again, for me at least, one of the problems with this great sport.
I think a lot of the fans that were furious with the decision at the time have since revisited the fight and perhaps changed their mind, myself included. But I can still see how and why many people felt Pacquiao won. At first, this one seemed like it had to be the biggest robbery of all time. On June 10th, Northern Irish boxer Ryan Burnett took to the ring in order to challenge for his first world title against Lee Haskins. The fight was just about as one-sided as it could ever be. The immensely skilled and undefeated Burnett dominated every round, scoring 2 knockdowns along the way. Haskins battled hard to make it to the final bell, but there wasn't a doubt in the world he lost the fight by a huge points differential. And then, out of nowhere, the ring announcer said the words that took everyone back.
And gentlemen, we have a split decision.
The first 2 judges scored the fight for Burnett by a wide 12-point margin, but Judge Clark Sammartino scored the fight outrageously wide for Haskins. The judge later admitted to not knowing who the boxers were pre-fight, and said he got the 2 mixed up on his scorecard, which is just disgraceful for a judge at any level, let alone for a world title fight.
It's the most absurd scorecard I have ever witnessed in my entire life. How you can return a score like that, I really do not know.
One of the most highly anticipated fights of recent times took place on September 16th earlier this year. Canelo Alvarez vs. Triple G was seen as a potential fight of the decade by the eyes of many boxing fanatics. How could the style matchup make it anything else? Well, the fight was great, but it wasn't exactly a barn burner. People were surprised by Canelo's lack of engagement. Triple G walked him down for the entire 12 rounds, desperately trying to give the fans the matchup they tuned in for. Canelo, although fighting off the back foot, landed the more eye-catching shots, but many felt they were far and few between to merit a victory.
This is officially a draw.
Since the fight, many people have asked me how I personally scored it, and I think a draw was okay. I didn't score the bout as meticulously as I normally would due to having a few drinks with friends, but when the officials went so wide for Canelo, the boxing world stood up and said this has gone too far. The outrageously wide scorecard from Adelaide Bird meant the fight would go down as a draw. Even though at the time I conceived this to be an okay overall decision, to be that far in favor for Canelo, who has a previous history when it comes to dodgy scorecards in his favor, was just outright wrong.
And ultimately got a draw. Adelaide Bird's scorecard, which was not a good one, notwithstanding.
This robbery was so bad, the sanctioning body issued an immediate rematch. On May 20th, French-based fighter Hassan Ndam ventured over to Japan to take on the Japanese rising contender Ryota Murata. But before you jump to conclusions, for the first time in robbery history, the seemingly impossible scorecard went against the home fighter. Murata dominated in front of his home crowd for most parts of the fight, leaving Ndam with a maximum chance of winning 3 rounds. But incredibly, the judges saw otherwise and gave it to the traveler. The fact that Murata lost his undefeated record is inexcusable, but he did get his own back 7 months later, this time taking it out of the judges' hands with a 7th round knockout.
Folks, I know these guys aren't big guys, but this should be brutal for as long as it lasts.
In case you were wondering, this list is not in any particular order, and number 1 certainly proves that, from my point of view at least. On March 18th, the undefeated in 46 Roman Gonzalez attempted to bridge that gap 1 fight closer to breaking Floyd Mayweather's record when he challenged the much bigger Srisaket Sor Rungvisai.
Big right hand, another right hand.
What a shit on Rungvisai.
Another left hook. Crowd is on its feet as Chocolatito is lacing Sor Rungvisai with hard shots.
The fight itself was epic and will definitely feature in my personal top 3 of the year. Roman was badly damaged by a headbutt in round 3, and that went on to affect him negatively for the remainder of the bout. The Thai fighter was clearly the bigger puncher of the 2, but in the eyes of many spectators, he didn't do enough to be awarded the decision. Gonzalez, being Gonzalez, applied relentless pressure throughout the bout, and the final CompuBox stats showed him to have landed over 150 more punches. Despite that, 2 of the 3 judges leant towards Rungvisai.
Shocker, guys.
Theories quickly emerged, with people saying the blood seeping from Gonzalez's head from the butt played a part in swaying the judges. I personally felt the fight was awarded to the right man, but definitely wanted to see a rematch. Unfortunately for Gonzalez, that ended up going much worse than the first.
Simply the Chocolatitos.
And he goes a second time, and this is it. This is over. He